Started. There we go. And I want to be clear about the fact that I do intend to share this. That said, it kind of sometimes can seem like it conflicts with my other with my request that everybody share deeply and honestly, because you may, after the fact, get off the call and say, well, that felt good. I'm glad I said those things, but oh my gosh, I don't really want the world knowing what I said. So if there's anything that you said, anything that you inferred, whatever, that you would really rather not be in a recording, just let me know afterwards. It's so easy for me to just edit that out. And we are delighted to do that because we really do want to encourage everybody to share deeply. So we call this the Superhero Support Series. And the reason that we do that is because the reason we call it that is because I, as a dementia family caregiver and as a dementia educator, have superheroes in this space, people who I look up to, who I feel are a boon to the entire world of dementia caregiving because they speak with clarity and honesty about what the dementia journey is like. They are deeply knowledgeable. We were so delighted last time to have Carrie Alberts with us, and today we have Patti LaFleur, and we'll get back to her in just a moment. First, I also just want to say that I recognize that every single person in this room is a dementia expert and a superhero, right? We all say that once you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia because everybody's different. But you are an expert on the person that you're caring for, and you're an expert on your journey. So please, by all means, speak up. Feel free to share your knowledge. Our belief is that we are all here to learn, but we're also all here to teach. So thank you for contributing to that. The format is that we are first going to have a conversation with Patti, learn a little bit more about Patti and about her time as a caregiver, a little bit about what she's doing now. And then we are going to open up to whatever it is that you want to talk about, whatever questions you might have. During my dementia education phase of life, I was with the University of Washington, where we ran a program that was for doctors, where we would get together with dementia superheroes. And we would then have what we called case presentations, where doctors would talk about cases that they're challenged by. And that's the same format that we follow here. What is it that's challenging in the case that you personally are dealing with? And also, as we're going along, at any point in time, feel free to raise your hand digitally or physically if there's something that you'd like to share. And also, our chat is there, so by all means, pop things into the chat if that's more comfortable for you. I will ask as we get started that if you are comfortable using the chat, if you would just type in where you're calling in from and who you're caring for. It doesn't need to be their name, but it might be my mom, my dad, my husband, whomever that might be. So we just got to kind of get a sense of everybody who's here. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce us all to Patti LaFleur. And I met Patti Patti and I first, we discovered that we are kind of neighbors. We're both in Washington State.
Mhm.
And I was delighted to see that there's somebody who's doing what Patti is doing, who's right in my backyard. Patti cared for her mom with dementia. I won't go into a lot about that because that's Patti's story. But Patti, you were posting on Instagram. And that is where I first noticed you and discovered, whoa, here's this woman who is just sort of telling it like it is. And that's one of the things that I admire about Kitty Norton as well. I said that Kitty had her movie Wine, Women, and Dementia, but she also, while she was a caregiver for her mom, she had has a brilliant website called Stumped Town Dementia. And that was, again, a resource for me where I was able to hear and learn from other people who were on the path. So, Patti, let's just go ahead and have you take it away. I would love to start by just learning about what you learned on your journey with your mom and a little bit about that story, some of the challenges that you faced.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Allison. Thank you to all of you for being here and being in this community together. I know as a care partner daughter myself, I know how limited time is. So thank you for just taking some time here. Allison and Bill have curated such a beautiful community, and it is just my honor to spend some time with you today. As Allison said, I'm Patti LaFleur, and I am the daughter of Linda. So my beautiful mom, Linda, walked with younger onset dementia for over 10 years. She was diagnosed when I was in my early 20s, and I walked this journey as a daughter that was supporting my dad. My dad was her full-time care partner, so I walked this journey supporting him in the ways that I could. Sadly, my dad got sick himself because he wasn't taking care of himself as a caregiver. And so my mom moved in with my husband and I the same year we got married overnight. I had been a teacher at that point, so I taught kindergarten in the Seattle school district, and or in the Renton school district in Seattle, and I had to make this huge life decision to step away from the classroom to become my mom's full-time care partner. My dad ended up needing to move into assisted living himself. And so we had to make this decision as a family financially about who was going to be able to be providing care for her. So I stepped away from the classroom and I became my mom's full-time care partner. And I quickly learned how few resources there were for families. And I quickly learned the power of community, the power of being able to connect with others locally and virtually is so powerful. And it's actually something that I admire so deeply about Kitty's movie, to bring it back to some to celebration of Kitty, is that it really shows the power of connecting with people on a virtual platform and then having these opportunities to get together in person. Caregivers are incredible, incredible humans. You are giving your heart and your love and your soul every single day. And so when we get together in person, it is magnetic. There's just this shared understanding of the heartbreak and the hard moments, but also the power of connection and how can we begin to find those moments of light. For me, one of the things that I really shy away from is the idea of a tragedy narrative, right? It was hard and it was heartbreaking and it was sad every single day. But a dementia diagnosis did not mean that my mom's ability to find love and find joy and to connect was over. So we really thought about, as a care partner team, me and my mom, what it looked like to find those moments. We still danced together. We laughed, we listened to music, we found opportunities to connect in ways that we hadn't before, right? My mom and I connected in ways that I never imagined that we would have. But it was so beautiful to be able to find those moments of light on a heavy, hard journey. But that doesn't discount that there was so much grief. I was grieving this person that I loved so deeply, and I was watching her lose herself in front of my eyes, right? There was so much anticipatory grief. And when I began to name that for myself, I was able to lean in and connect with her in different ways. So I think the thing for me when I think about about my journey with my mom, I learned everything on that journey. I learned what it looked like to love someone so selflessly. I learned what it looked like to show up, but I also learned how hard and heartbreaking and how few resources there were for families. Luckily for me on my journey, I got connected with the founder of the nonprofit organization that I currently work for called Lorenzo's House. And it was really that first time that I found that there was a community that was thinking about the unique challenges of younger onset dementia. And so now, a little bit over 3 years since my mama has passed, I've had this beautiful opportunity to lead our programs and to connect with sons, daughters, and children from all across the globe who are walking a similar journey to the journey that I walked with my mom. But it's really about how do we find these opportunities, like our time together today, to really connect with others who understand our unique experiences and problem solve. I love how Allison says this idea of what kind of problems, what kind of ideas, what kind of things are we bringing to the table together, and how can we grapple with these experiences and provide a little support and insight, and sometimes just even a space to get it out there with people who can catch what you're experiencing with shared understanding and heart and insight and so much light. So I think that there are, when we think about the challenges on this journey, there's a lot of challenges that you can't control. Your person has a neurocognitive condition that is changing who they are. There are financial pieces. There are restraints within the government and restraints within access to support and resources. But the one thing that we can control is how we can find our community. And what community looks like can look so differently. It can look like one person that you can go to in the moment. It can look like this beautiful space that we're sharing together today that can really help to find that understanding and shared insight. So, thank you for letting me share a little bit about my story. Thank you for letting me share a little bit about my challenges as well. And just want to say, like, I see you and I understand that I understand pieces of your journey. And I'm just so honored to be in this shared space today with all of you.
Patty, thank you for that. You and I had chatted about some of the things that we would discuss, but I'm going to throw you something that wasn't on your list because
Please do.
sorry. First, I
I
also
love it.
just want to say that I went through I love Teepa Snow, crazy about
Mm.
her, and I went through a lot of training classes with her. And one of the things that she really focuses on is acceptance as a caregiver of the things that I can change and the things that I can't change. And that the things that I can't change, like the fact that my loved one is right, that their brain is becoming a different kind of brain, like I can't really change that. And so how do you then move on knowing that these things are in your path? Um,
Totally.
I'm wondering if there's any kind of um, aha moment that you had about communication with your mom. Was there something along the way that you were like, oh, okay, I need to do this differently?
I mean, I think that one of the things that I really learned communication wise with her is that how her communication changed and how I then needed to adapt the way I approach the communication. So it was thinking about what are some shorter sentences or what are some shorter questions or how can I begin to still allow her to have a voice and make decisions, but really thinking about how could I limit those choices and not limit the choices with yes or no questions because my mom tended to say no, no matter what the option was, but how could I limit her choices by offering two different things? And so for me, one of the biggest pieces was I really tried the best I could to maintain her dignity and agency because I know the power of being able to make decisions and have choice and have these opportunities. But how could I still allow that as her communication and her ability to communicate change? And how could we use nonverbal communication, like body language or physical touch, as a way to maintain a relationship,
Mhm.
even as she wasn't able to maintain a relationship from a verbal standpoint. The other thing that I think was really big and potentially because of my background in education is I really tried to think a lot about what my mom could still do. So what were the things that she was still able to do versus the things that she couldn't do? So she was still able to grab at her clothes, right? So I would hold up two options of shirts for her to pick between rather than she couldn't verbalize necessarily what the experience was, but what were those spaces where I could still allow her to have a voice and choice and express herself, but maybe it isn't in the same way that it used to be, and what can she still do as a person in our family environment?
I love that. I'm thinking about that progression of hey, why don't you go upstairs and get dressed?
Yeah.
It's time for us to head out, and how that transitions to, how about if you pick your clothes? And then it transitions to, how about if you go to the closet and choose a shirt? And then eventually I make it so there's only two shirts in the closet because the choices are overwhelming, but they can still go to the closet and still make a choice. And then it gets to the point where you are, where instead of just putting a shirt on someone, if there's
Yeah.
any way that somebody can even choose between A
Yeah.
and B, and even if it's by looking at it, or even
Yeah.
if it's pointing to it, that this makes them still a participant in their life. And how vital it is that we try to constantly seek opportunities to have people still feel like their voice matters.
Totally. And the understanding that maybe that she wasn't going to be able to make a choice about everything, right? Maybe she wasn't going to
Right.
make a choice about her pants and her socks and her shoes. But if she was had the opportunity to make a choice about her shirt in one instance throughout the day, how that one instance could carry across multiple places because we're all busy, right? Let's name it. I mean, many carers, I feel very fortunate that I was able to step away from the classroom and care for my mom full time. I mean, it was a financial decision, honestly, because I wasn't making that much money in the classroom and it costs more to pay for her care. But it really is. I understand carers are busy. I was working full time and I was in my early 30s and I was trying to navigate caring for her at the same time. And so maybe you can't make decisions about everything, but where is that one place or that one opportunity to make decisions? And I found when she did have the opportunity to make a decision about something, it made completing the task a little bit easier. So, how actually it might feel like it takes more time, but sometimes it gives you more time back in the long run because she's like, oh, I want that shirt. Okay, maybe I will let you put my arms up to put the shirt on in a different way.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Um, there's an awesome video, I'm just going to talk about it briefly, that Teepa Snow has out there that is about how to help a person get dressed. And I thought about it when you said putting the arms up.
Yeah.
When people have a hard time putting their arms up, there's a way that Teepa demonstrates of putting the arm back instead, and it's
Yeah.
hugely helpful. So anyway, if anybody feel like if you're having trouble helping people get shirts on over their heads, there are alternate ways to do that. Um,
That is such a good point. That video is incredible. I have definitely watched it many times.
I was volunteering at that point in a long-term care community where I was responsible for getting people lined up and walking, and it was the winter time. And I had like 12 people with dementia who all had to put a coat on. And to try and figure out like, okay, how do I get 12 people into their coats to go outside? And that video saved my life.
Yeah, 100%. And it's all
Um,
about how do we find these tools and tips and resources, and how do we have opportunities like spaces like this where tools and tips and resources are shared, right? Because caregivers don't have time to find a million different resources. So, how can you, to kind of lean back on that community aspect, how can you have these spaces, support groups, opportunities like this to learn from others who have this? And I think you said it earlier, this lived experience, but really this lived wisdom that comes from walking this journey every single day.
oh my gosh, absolutely. Speaking of the journey, is there anything that you would change about your journey?
I mean, yes, right? Of course, we can all look back. And especially in the moment, there was so much guilt and regret, and like, I should be doing more, or I should be doing this, or I should be doing that. And in a lot of ways, there isn't anything that I would change because it all informed where I am now. But the one thing that, if I think about it as a daughter who was trying to my very best to support my mom, who was the one with brain changes, but also to support my dad, is I wish I would have really encouraged him to access support. He really tried to take on caregiving in this really strong way, and he loved my mom so deeply, but he did not access support or resources. So as a daughter, I wish I would have really encouraged him. And but what happened to my dad really taught me that when I was caring for my mom, the importance of taking breaks and the importance
Yeah.
of finding community and the importance of accessing what resources I could to be able to make sure I was still caring for myself, right? But I definitely think if I could change anything, I would change that I would have maybe pushed a little bit harder to make sure that my dad had access to support and resources so he could have cared for himself.
Yeah, that's a toughie. You know, Kitty, I know that you ran into that as well with your dad, who you say it so beautifully in your film about that he wasn't the kind of guy, like he was the kind of guy who would take care of your mom through thick or thin or whatever, but it turns out he was also the kind of guy who would get pancreatic cancer,
Totally.
and he wasn't taking care of himself. I run into a lot of caregivers, Patty, who are living this
Yeah,
because they're an older person who has grown kids and they feel like, you know what, I just don't want to do this to my kids. Like I don't want to impose upon them. This
totally.
should not be their problem. It should be my problem. And the reality is, no, 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 no. It needs to be something that the family is dealing with together. And if you can't get your kids involved, then find other people to support you.
Exactly. And like find your community, find those people. For me, I didn't have any other family that could support me. My sister was in Texas. I'm here in the Seattle, Washington area. And so she could support as best as she could from a distance, but wasn't able to support in any of the day-to-day tasks. And
Yeah.
so I ended up really relying on friends, right? Like, who are the friends that can show up? And so sometimes your community or your village doesn't look like family members or it doesn't look like the people you think are going to show up. But how can you really begin to lean in on others who maybe could show up in ways that you didn't expect? And what are those tasks and what are those things that potentially you could need help with? Just giving those as things. For me, one of the biggest things was like, can you pick up my groceries? If I send you my grocery list and I Venmo you the money that I need, the money for the groceries, can you do that for me? Because that is my least favorite task. And it is something that we really need. And so, what are kind of some of those tasks that you could hand off that others maybe would be ready? Because people want to help often, not always. I understand not always, but often, but they don't know what to do.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of being very specific about what you need. Patty, I'm curious about what got you started on social media. How'd
Yes, I
that
love this
happen?
question. I feel like it's so interesting. And it's one of the questions I get the most actually is like, why did you start sharing this really intimate, private journey so publicly? And honestly, it was super unintentional. My mom moved in with that. As I said, my mom moved in with my husband and I overnight. And quickly it shifted from me spending time with my friends and traveling and having these adventures to really spending time with my mom. So I started sharing our story unintentionally. I started posting pictures or posting videos and using hashtags like dementia or millennial caregiver or daughter caregiver. And it opened me up to a whole community of people that I didn't know was out there. I didn't have a single friend in my life at that time that was caring for a parent. I had a lot of friends who were having kids, but I didn't have any friends that were caring for a parent, and it felt really isolating. So by beginning to share my story, I found a community. I found resources. I found people like you, Allison, right, who are deep, beautiful souls and doing really deep, meaningful work. I learned a lot about care from doing that as well. And then I learned that out in the world, there's a lot of stigma around dementia. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of misperceptions, and there's this image in our head of someone maybe that is in their late 80s in a nursing home or in a wheelchair, and there's not a lot of joy. And so I found that something that really captured other people was the connection and love that my mom and I were able to share. And so it started to change some perceptions of what connection could look like. And I was very frank. My mom did not know my name. My mom did not know that I was her daughter. There was a lot of things, but if you can't watch a video of my mom and I together and not see the love that was shared. And so I think that that provided people a lot of hope and a lot of understanding that connection, although doesn't look traditionally and was hard and there was so much grief in it, and I want to name that, but there was also so much love.
Mm, that's really beautiful. And that does. that did shine through in your videos. And what a wonderful thing that you still have those. You know, I always encourage people to take lots of videos, even if you're not going to post them on social media.
Totally.
It's just so nice to be able to afterwards. For me, still, I look back on videos of my husband dancing when he was pretty late in the game, right? Or I look at videos of me supporting him, of me helping him eat, or me cutting his hair. And it reminds me that I did do good work. I did
Yeah.
try, especially because even after the person is gone, we still
Yeah,
have these moments of guilt where we feel like I didn't do enough, I should have done more. And I think having photographic evidence that you did a lot and that the connection was there is just so powerful.
for
Yeah,
sure. For sure.
I'm
And just such a great reminder of the love that you shared, right? And such a beautiful gift. So thank you for that, Allison. So true.
yeah. And Patty, I'd love to just hear about some of the resources and supports that you found helpful when you were caring for your mom.
Yeah, I think some of the biggest supports came from just what communities and what access to other people that were walking a similar journey were really helpful. So, what are those support groups or what are those resources, whether they're locally or they're more virtual as well? So, the local Alzheimer's Association chapter was an incredible resource for me here in the Seattle area, as far as especially with their helpline. And then after I found Lorenzo's house, which is unapologetically focused on younger onset dementia, that was an incredible resource, a support really in community and connection. But then there was a lot of really incredible tools and resources that I found along my way that really helped me in being able to maintain connection and be able to have my mom have some opportunities for connecting and being engaged in different things. So one of them that was really huge for us is my mom had one of those robotic pets from Joy for All. And so she had a pet. The pet's name was Popcorn. Popcorn went everywhere with us. And so she really was able to, my mom was a carer, my mom was all love. And so she was able to care for Popcorn in a really beautiful way. She named Popcorn. Also, that's why he was called Popcorn, because that's her favorite snack. And so this opportunity for her to still have this purpose, Popcorn gave her purpose because she felt like she had Popcorn to care for. Popcorn also was an incredible tool for us because when my mom would hold Popcorn, it became a sign for other people that they may need to give her more time or be more patient with her. They were quickly able, like, oh, there might be a reason that this woman is holding this stuffed dog. And so this stuffed dog was a really great nonverbal tool for me to have people have more patience with my mom. And I would be remiss to not say that Zinnia TV was another really incredible resource, something that I know that I shared with both Bill and Allison when I met them, was that my mom loved dogs. Obviously, she had a robotic dog, but she loved dog videos. And I would often put her with a YouTube video of dogs. And it was great until an ad came up that was not so great and it was alarming or disturbing or was something. And my mom had a really hard time not like she thought TV was reality. And so if that happened, she would have a really hard time kind of coming back. So something that was supposed to be calming and a moment for me to, maybe do the dishes and for her to just watch a video and just feel calm and have some joy really quickly became triggering. And so Zinnia TV became this tool, although very late in my journey, that I could, with full trust and understanding, put her in this space and she could actually engage and find connection and comfort. And I didn't have to worry about a crazy ad with like violence or guns or something to pop up on the screen. So that became such a tool, especially for us in the later stages, because she wasn't able to communicate and she wasn't able to navigate it. So I could just do the
Yeah.
dishes and know she was in a safe, warm, comforting space.
I love that. And I love that you you shared something that I hadn't thought about before. So I know at our airport and at other airports, they have the lanyard program where you can get a lanyard from the information people. It has sunflowers on it, and everybody at the airport, and hopefully within the TSA and within the airlines, recognizes that if you have that sunflower lanyard, it means that you're a person who needs a little extra help
Totally.
and patience. And you're absolutely right. If I saw a normal looking adult sitting with a stuffed animal, it would trigger me
Totally.
to recognize that there's just something that I need to pay attention to. So I
Totally.
really like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I love the sunflower lanyard concept because it's not something where it's like you're wearing a shirt that's like, I have dementia. Like, who wants to wear that, right? There is so much that's not maintaining your dignity, right? But it's a quiet or it's a nonverbal symbol that isn't like in your face about dementia. It's just an understanding to give someone a little bit more time, which we all need those beautiful opportunities. I also want to name, I saw Denise put in the chat this idea about any good articles on how adult children can deal with a non-demented parent who throws up all kinds of roadblocks. It is so real that Denise, that comes up in our young adult groups at Lorenzo's house all the time, that this idea of like, what do you do? And so one of the things that really has come up, especially from one of our social workers, is this idea of what are kind of some of those small tasks that maybe someone could come in and help with. So could you have someone who comes in and is cooking a meal, or could you have someone who's coming in and maybe is doing some cleaning of the house as an entry point? For me, one of the big things was I said I had a friend that was going to be able to come and spend time with my mom. I'm like, I went to high school with her. We had this whole plan that had happened. And so my dad was okay with my friend coming in and spending a couple hours with my mom. He would not have been okay had it been a stranger, even though it was a stranger, but that's the way that we approached it, even with my dad, which became such a beautiful tool for us and thinking about what some of those tasks are. And then there are a couple articles that are out there that kind of have some other tips and resources. But I just wanted to name, I saw that in the chat as well, Denise, and it is so real. And it is something that, I mean, I even experienced myself as a daughter.
yeah. I'm curious if there are other people on the call who've had that experience, if anybody
Mhm.
just cares to speak up about the parent who is the healthy parent who is making it difficult to get better care for the person with dementia, or if Denise wants to share any kind of specifics that we can kind of help you chew on.
I was a sole daughter caring for my mom, and it felt hard being the sole person. But then when I encountered people who had, two parents, the one with dementia and the non-demented parent, I realized that no, actually I had it much easier. So
Mm,
many of them, yeah, would get into this difficult triangle of wanting to be the help, and then the non-demented parent was yeah, just not accepting the things that I as a single caregiver could sort of, shoehorn in,
mhm.
not that it was easy, but I could get someone to come and visit my mom or take walks with my mom or do things where these non-demented parents were saying, no, no, I got it covered. I don't need that. I don't want anyone in my home, et cetera, et cetera. And so it would just be nice to, yeah, to have a kind of a good article or a list of tips and tricks that can work. But I hear what you're saying, Patty, that sometimes the same thing that works for the demented parent might work for the non-demented parent. Yeah, those white lies and little fibs and
For sure.
do it for me. I'm worried about you, mom and or dad.
For sure.
All
Yeah,
those
we
things.
Yeah, we have a young adult that I just connected with recently, and actually the way that she was able to get her other parent to to access support is that she shared some research articles that were about what happens to like the likelihood of caregivers passing before their person that is the one that has the brain change. And so she was like, I'm just going to come at you with this truth. Like, if you don't take care of yourself, here's the research that says caregivers experience more, depression and anxiety and can have health concerns. And that actually was something that seemed to work for the parent that is not living with dementia, because they were like, "Oh, wow, this is actually something that happens." It's almost what I kind of wish I had done with my dad, because he was always kind of fearful of those things. I'm like, I don't know if it's a little bit of a scare tactic, so I don't know if it's best practice, but I felt like it was, just knowing that that is the reality that can happen if you don't take care of yourself can sometimes help people to understand.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's good. And what I also have been counseling people is, try to be a strong advocate for that parent's health and well-being too, and maybe go to those doctor appointments as well,
Yeah.
because you can plant that seed with, sorry, got dogs going on. You can plant the seed with that parent's caregiver, a primary caregiver, that, this parent of mine is under a lot of stress caring for someone with dementia. And, can we screen for depression and other underlying health conditions that they might not be acknowledging and taking care of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, absolutely. I think that also for the messaging to be that we've effectively already lost dad, say, and I don't want to lose you too. I want to
Mhm.
have you around. And so therefore, we need to pay attention to this, to the reality, to the statistics.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and who's going to take care of him if something happens to you? Like then it's going to be all on me. So you need to take more of my help now to prevent me one day being the sole caregiver because something has happened to you. So if you're trying to do this to protect me, that's not the way to go about it. And
Totally.
Kitty, I see that you said that you had a similar experience. Do you want to pop on and say that, or do you want me to read? I can read your chat.
Yeah, it was just listening to you, Patty, and I kind of remembered from your socials that we had very similar experiences with our dad. And a lot of it for me, and I've actually, my dad's been dead since 2016, and I've just come to this realization that I didn't really understand what this was like for spouses. Here's for because I'm the kid and my parents are supposed to die first. But like with you, Allison, you had to your whole life is suddenly completely 180 degrees with a diagnosis. And I didn't really understand that my father just had to go through this like 2-year period of denial before he could really accept that this was now his reality. And mom had it a little bit easier because she had dementia and she just kind of forgot she
Mhm.
had dementia, and she was
Yeah.
kind of fine with it after that. But yeah, so I think for me, I didn't really think very hard about how they felt about it. And that's one thing I regret. Like you, I have regrets about my dad. I don't have regrets about my mom.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I want to acknowledge Angela's comment that she says perhaps a session or on appropriate or updated language would be could be an idea. Like demented is not seen as appropriate anymore. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I know that sometimes we talk about like the parent who's unaffected or the healthy parent, right? The parent with the healthy brain. So thank you for that reminder. And I wish we could find a better word than dementia. I know plenty of people who are living with dementia who hate that word, and yet
Mhm.
we don't seem to come up with a word that is that's better. But I sure wish we could though, if anybody has any ideas. But then of course it's all about buy-in, right? And getting people to accept
Totally.
that word. Um, I noticed at a conference that I was at recently where there were a lot of persons living with dementia there, they referred to themselves as a person living with dementia.
Totally.
And that
Person
seemed like a
first.
respectful way to do
Right.
things. Um, Patty, I want to just wrap up here by asking if there is any light or insight that you would share with another son or daughter? And you've shared so much. Just if there's anything else, just sort of in summary that you would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing that I would say to a daughter or son or child or a care partner is really find your community, find the people that understand your journey, even if it's one other person that you can reach out to in a moment of crisis, or it's a person that you can reach out to when you need support. Like, I understand it can be so isolating and it can feel like there is no one there, but look for either a local support group or a virtual support group. Find one, at least one other person that can be that connection, because the power of having someone in your phone that you can text or having someone that you can call that just understands is so helpful. Maybe they can't fix it because we can't fix it, right? There is no cure currently for dementia. And so we can't fix it. We know it's a progressive condition. We know it's going to change and you're going to do and you're going to adjust and you're going to pivot and then it's going to change again. But having someone or something that you can do in those moments to help you feel connected and seen and understood can really change things. It's not going to change the experience. It's not going to change what's happening to this person that you love and care about, but it can help you to show up, to move forward, to wake up, because some days, especially in caregiving, it's all about just putting that one foot in front of the other and just showing up in such beautiful ways that you already are. But who are those people that you can be real with? Like, this is hard and heavy, and I'm sad, and I miss my husband, or I miss my wife, or I miss my mom, or I miss my brother, right? But having someone that you can go to in those moments just it changes everything. And like I said, it for me, it wasn't family. I didn't have a family that I could rely on. It was my friends, right? And so, or it's this person you meet on social media, like Kitty and Allison, right? Like, it is so incredible. So just really finding that community, and what community looks like can look so different for each person. But what do you do in those moments? Because they're going to happen, right? It's hard and heavy. I say I found love and connection with my mom. I didn't every day. Some days I was like, this is not for me. But I kept showing up. So just that would be
Yeah.
my biggest piece of light, or my biggest piece of insight. And just also, you're doing awesome. It's so easy to feel like you're not doing enough, but you are not only showing up for a person that is walking an extremely heavy journey themselves, but then you're in this space right now showing up for yourself and trying to learn and build community. Like, I wasn't doing that sometimes, right? I wasn't able to show up in these spaces and ask questions and be so vulnerable and try to share pieces of your story. Like, what a huge celebration that you're in this space today and that you have Allison and Bill to catch you. Like, oh, what a gift. So, just really want to celebrate every person in this room for showing up in the way that they are.
Thank you, Patty. Um, I learn so much from you every time I hear you. So thank you for everything that you're sharing. And we'll continue. We still have more time so that you'll continue to share. I want to acknowledge something that Kendall shared.
Mm.
That sometimes we get pushback from other family members or friends who feel that I, as the partner who is talking about my wife or my husband and how difficult it is, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and the other family members, whether it's their children, perhaps I'm a step parent, whether it's their children or their siblings, who say, she seems fine to me. And she tells us that you're the problem. I'm so fortunate to have met a sweetheart through my caregiver support group. And his experience was that his wife's siblings were absolutely in denial and felt that he was trying to pull the wool over their eyes. They stopped trusting him. They didn't know why. Why are you lying about her? Every time I'm with her, she's fine. So I'd love to hear if there's anybody in the room, A, who is dealing with this. I know that Kendall is. If there's others who are dealing with this or who have dealt with this, what has worked, what hasn't worked. Melissa says gaslighting is the worst, and it is, especially when people feel like you're gaslighting them and you're not. You're being honest and you're sharing what you see.
I'll speak to that, just a couple of things. One of the bigger challenges is show timing and duration of being with someone. I think we also have a misconception about what dementia looks like. And obviously, if it's my mom or my dad, which both have it, I notice things a lot sooner than most because I'm so intimately familiar with them. And the challenge, of course, is it's in those early times, the indications that I'm seeing that things are changing, others can't, and or my mom, or right now it's my mom, who is doing her level best to really, with high intense focus, show that she's fine. So if you come and visit my mom for 15 minutes or you see her in the grocery store with me, you're likely going to miss things, or you don't know she said that same thing 10 times that day, or that she's grocery shopping for the 20th time this week for a bag salad. It's like those little subtleties that get missed. And I think that sometimes people will revert to, well, they look great. Well, this isn't about how they look visually. It's how they're able to get through their day. And so the things that I've found that have worked for me is, one is to let go. Like, I used to try to spend a lot of time convincing people, and I realized that if I was going to get through this, things would change. Time will tell. I don't have any responsibility to explain to these people. Physicians are the worst. And so I will say, in the physician community, I am one of your most ardent supporters of being proxied. And I know how to write bullet points to just, hey, checking in. Don't say I have anything to talk about, but my mom took her pants off on her patio today in the middle of the day to sunbathe. And so I just kind of document and record, and I'm not always asking for help, but I need them to see what I'm seeing. And so I write little notes to myself on my phone. I feel like I've been journaling now for several years, but they are really little nuances that I think help me in the times when I need the physicians to advocate or look at something deeper. But it has to be a constant stream for them. But they're about the only people that I care about anymore. So I just want to say, let go of all those other people out there who don't see it or get it. Just you're doing your very best, and don't try to convince them of anything.
Melissa, you are just the voice of wisdom. I appreciate so much of what you said. A few things popped up for me. One is I remember going into a long-term care community where I had never been there before. It was in memory care. And I met this guy named Jim. And Jim was wearing a suit and tie. He was totally put together, really nice. His hair was nice, was all combed and everything. And he held out his hand and he said, "Hey, I'm Jim. How are you?" And I said, "Hi, Jim. I'm Allison." He said, "You're just visiting today?" And I said, "I am." And he said, "Well, I want to welcome you aboard. I run the place." I totally bought it. I thought Jim was the director until he started telling me how they had moved a bed into his office because he's here so often. And then I realized, oh, Jim lives here, right? People who are living with dementia can very often completely convince somebody who is uninitiated that there's nothing wrong with them. They can also really convince people who don't want there to be something wrong with them. I want you to be normal. I need you to be normal. So be normal for me, right? Behave the way that you've always behaved for me. And especially early on, people are able to pull that off. I think one of the things that you said, Melissa, about spend time with them. You know what? Maybe you should come spend a day with mom because or do it as a favor for me, right? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I've got to go to this thing that's over, I need somebody to come stay with mom for the day. Or how about if mom spends the day with you so that they see it firsthand and they live it? Because boy, there's nothing like that. And that may not be possible. They may live in another state and it's never going to happen. I really appreciated what you said, Melissa, about like, they're going to get it. Like eventually it will become quite obvious. And we don't then lord it over them and say, "Told you so," right? But instead, we reach out for help, and we say, I'm so sorry. This has got to be so hard for
I
you."
did forget one important thing, and that
Yeah.
is first responders. You kind of need to tell. And it reminds me, last week my mom decided to start stealing the tomato plants out in front of Whole Foods. It's a whole thing. Um, so I'm like my mom's social manager and PR director. So I'm her, not her handler so much as I'm coming in from the backside going, "Hey, Ian, manager of the Whole Foods, I know mom told you she's doing you a favor by taking your tomato plants." And she was sort of right, because they are looking really bad, but my mom doesn't do any gardening. So, and walking across the street back to her place full of tomato plants. That's the whole thing. But the point is that I do think first responders, encounters in the community with managers. My dad was banned from Costco for life. That's another story for another day. But the fact is that they need help. And one of the tools that I've used, especially with my dad with FTD, was AFTD has these great cards that said, "This my person has frontal temporal degeneration," or whatever. And then you don't have any time to tell people stuff sometimes because they're with you. This is not the time to educate. I would whip those cards out and casually pass them along. And I think that having a little card that you can hand to someone and just give the little, because you're mouthing dementia. I mean, I did that all the time. And I realized, you know what, let's educate a bit and let's give them a card. That manager of the Whole Foods, let's do that. And it really can help, especially longer term if it's someplace they're there often, like the grocery store. So anyway, sorry about all that, but that's another thing that I did use and have used as a tool.
Please don't apologize. I say thank you
Yeah.
for all that.
Yeah.
Patty, is there something you wanted to add there?
I mean, Melissa, that was so helpful. That was incredible. But the thing that I was thinking specifically with Kendall's situation was just similar to what you said, Allison. What are those opportunities to let people into your space and get a window into your experience? And I love the idea of like, oh man, I have a doctor's appointment. That's what I would do with my sister when she'd be in town. Oh, I have a doctor's appointment. I have to be gone for 2.5 hours or 4 hours. And I need you to sit with mom for 4 hours so that she would get an idea of what I was experiencing. Or, hey, I really need help getting to the doctor's appointment. Can you meet us at the doctor's appointment? Like, oh, I can't go to this. Like, what are kind of some of those ways where you can let people have a little bit of a window into your experience, kind of in sneaky ways? And then I want to name what Kitty said too. I think that denial piece for people, they really, and what you said, Allison, like, this is someone's mom or dad or spouse or brother or sister, and they just want them to be okay, right? They just really, it's hard to get to that acceptance piece. So providing opportunities to continue to connect. And then the other thing that worked with my family is, although they were not engaged, I still let them know what was happening. So I had kind of a group message that went in our text message trail that was like, hey, just want to let you know we had an appointment with mom's doctor. She's experiencing more incontinence. And so now we have started to add in depends, or add in what it was, and just continuing to give them information. So I'm not the one withholding information, I'm providing it, and they get to choose what they're going to do with that. But it felt like keeping people informed was my way of at least trying to provide getting a window into what I was experiencing. But so real, like Kendall, so real, right? Like we're all on different levels of acceptance of this experience.
I want to tag on to that for a second. There are three little notes that I made. One is going back to something that Melissa said, document, document, document. If you write down the things that are happening, that is how we ultimately got a diagnosis, is I was able to say, okay, let me just whiteboard this for you. This happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. What is that? Again, moving forward, when you're meeting with the doctor, doctors want you generally to be able to explain to them what's going on. They love it when people, not all doctors, but the doctors that I work with love it when I come in with a list. This, how did this happen? Give us something to talk about. Also, it's helpful for you as you move down the road to be able to look back and say, well, I can't believe I thought that was a problem. Because now I understand what problems are. Back then, maybe it wasn't really so bad. Another thing is videos, right? if one of the things that is problematic is that, for instance, if I were to ask, if my partner's son were to call and have transactional conversations, she's fine. This is what she did today. This is where she went. This is how she's feeling. But if you were to ask her to talk about the steps that she'd go through in baking a cake, for instance, it would be nuts. So what I could do is I could say something like, "Hey, I thought it would be really nice if we sent your son a video of you explaining how to bake a cake because that's something he might not know how to do." I'm making this up, but you get my point, is that we would then have her um that we'd be capturing documentation of what the problem is. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. The other thing that I wanted to say is this. We always need to ask ourselves why. Why am I so invested in this person believing things the way that I believe them? Why am I interested in them having the same truth? So I think about the fact that, for instance, my husband was a fairly young guy, so his mom was still around. It killed her to think that her son had dementia. And in the beginning, I was so angry about the fact that she wasn't giving me more support. And when I was on the phone with her, I would talk about the terrible things that he did, and I would talk about how hard our life was and why things were so bad. And eventually I was like, wow, Allison, what is to be gained here? She's never going to come out here. She doesn't fly anymore. She's never going to see him again. So instead, what I started saying is, you know what? He's showing signs of improvement. He's doing really well today. What a great day we had with him. We went to the park, and I decided that my message needed to be about the positivity, and it needed to be about the things that were good and the things that she could hang on to and believe that no matter what was going on with her son, he was living a good life. So, anyway, who is it about? I guess that's one of the questions sometimes. All right. Um, Next topic. Is there anything, so if this were, which it is, case presentations, right? Is there anything that anybody is feeling like, I don't know, is it just me? Or is there another way to handle this thing that I'm running into? And I know that we are so blessed on this call to have some folks who are in the business of supporting people living with dementia and their caregivers. So additionally, if you have something that you can offer about something that you've run into recently that you think might be a good teachable moment, we welcome those. And while you guys are chewing that, I'm going to do a commercial because Joe Hausch is on the call and I want to do a commercial for Fotavia. So I'm grateful to Patti for shouting out about Zinnia TV. And we have a friend in the biz, which is Fotavia, and they are similar but very different from Zinnia, but it is also a tool that is routed through the television. And Joe and his team have done a really amazing job of creating trivia programming there where our videos are not really based so much on real life footage. Joe has somehow wrangled this amazing relationship with, is it Time Warner, Joe? Well, I'm not sure. Anyway, they have wrangled an amazing relationship. I think it's with Time Warner. So they have actual footage of amazing events that have happened through history that they're able to incorporate into their videos. But they, like us, create their videos with an eye towards people who may not be able to digest regular television in a meaningful way. Okay. And I will just ask Patti, is there anything else that you would like to chat about? Anything you wish you'd known?
I mean, I am still a little bit speechless after your thought that you just shared about your husband's mom. I think that that is so beautiful to stop and pause and think about, like, kind of what is the purpose, or why do I feel a certain way about something, and how can you approach things in such a beautiful way. That perspective, I mean, it made me cry, Allison. That was so beautiful. So thank you. I think, I think I just think a lot about you're in it, and it can be hard to see the bigger picture of what other people are doing, and it can really quickly feel personal that someone isn't showing up in the way that you would want them to, and why aren't they doing that? And there's a lot of different reasons. And so when we can stop and offer perspective and share insights and think about things from other people's perspective, it can really help to take some of those things off your shoulder too. It probably made you feel so much lighter just being able to do that rather than trying to convince her. So I think that that is really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, you know what? One of the things that the reason that my lovely partner who, as I mentioned, I met through my support group after both of our partners had passed away, and we met again at a party. But anyway, one of the things that he said one time at a session, I was complaining about some people who hadn't shown up, and some people who I was pretty perturbed because I thought they were our friends. And where were they? And he said something about, like, you just don't know what's going on in their lives. And your problems might not be top of list for them. And it was a little bit of a, like, it kind of made me bristle a bit. But I then had the experience of running into one of those people who hadn't shown up years later. And he said, I just want to say to you how bad I feel about not having shown up for you. But when we got the news about what was going on with Evan, our son, and then he went on to tell me this horrible story about how their son was really having problems, and it was one of those situations where they like had him kidnapped at night and brought to the bad boy camp, and like their
Mm.
family was just in absolute turmoil, and they
Wow.
didn't have time to reflect on what was going on in my life. And so that was sort of it was really eye-opening to think, like, for with my mother-in-law, I love her, I wanted to protect her, but with
Yeah.
these other people, I was just angry at them. And so one of the things that I learned with my husband's diagnosis is that anger is crippling.
Yeah.
And it was so much better when we got his diagnosis and I could let go of all of the anger that I felt at all of his inadequacies, and
Yeah.
instead just be really sort of sad about them. And sadness is not as debilitating as anger. So if we can find ways to let go of that particular emotion, whew.
For sure. And how can you name that that's the feeling, right? The power of putting names to the emotions that you're feeling allow you to take the next step forward to what you're experiencing, right? Like I
Yeah.
am feeling grief right now when I was walking this journey, and then I could process my grief, right? Like, so they all are kind of, those feelings are all pretty adjacent to each other, you know, anger, sadness, guilt, right? Like it all can kind of live right there. And so when you can begin to name those, you can begin to process and work through and take the first step to really navigating these really hard, heavy emotions that come with something that none of us asked for and none of us wanted and none of us learned. I mean, Allison, you have learned so many beautiful things and you are such an incredible dementia care educator and do all these things. But like before your husband, right? Like I mean, before my mom, I didn't know anything about, I was a kindergarten teacher, right? That's what I did. I learned a lot on the fly and continue to build those skills and learn and grow and have these conversations. It's just why the opportunity to have conversations like that are so important, and what are those pieces that I can take and can help me on my journey today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely find that now I have a way of, when I interact with people who are like, there's clearly something going on with them, I tell myself, I actually say to myself, stay out of judgment.
Yeah.
Stay out of judgment. You have no idea what their story is. You don't know what's going on with them. So just like, who are you to, right? And to me, part of that is because I saw people judging my husband all the time.
For sure.
And I saw people treating him with cruelty
Yeah.
because they thought that there was something wrong with him. Well, there was something wrong with him,
Yeah.
but it wasn't with his soul, right? It was with his brain. And so I think that that is why it is so important for all of us in the dementia sphere to be stigma busters and to
Yeah.
help people understand that there is no intentionality here. Nobody
No.
is trying to be difficult.
No.
One thing I was thinking about with our motives and telling people about the dementia that someone is dealing with is I think it has to do with the stages that we're in. I mean, I remember at the earlier stages, my sister saying, you know, mom seems fine, mom seems fine. Um,
Mhm.
and at that time, my sister was a recipient of my mother's generosity, and my mother would forget that she had sent my sister a check. And so she'd send 2 checks or she'd send 3 checks. And, you know, for my sister to understand my mother was giving her more money than she should was important to me. You know, for my
Yeah.
sister not to just say, oh, this is great. Mom's super generous this month. And then I think around a person's dying is also a time when we feel especially vulnerable and want people to know what the situation is, and people who are absent and have already said their goodbye, I think is particularly painful. When people, you realize that family members have written them off, maybe by years at that point, and you're saying, but she's still here, and this is your time to come and say goodbye, and you're facing this reality of people who are basically saying, well, she's already dead to me.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that's a good one to look at. What is my motivation, and, you know, hanging on to that. But I just think it's important that we recognize there are stages to all of this. It's not
Yeah.
just one thing where we adopt an attitude and it fits for every stage of the disease process.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. Wow, well, we've gone down an interesting path. I'm happy to go down another one. We've got a little bit of time left. If there's any just broad topics anybody wants to pop onto the
I'd
board.
like to ask about you know, I don't know what you call this, so apologies for not knowing how to explain it. I feel like sometimes we now with dementia forget that they were maybe a person a different way before the disease, and we start to put them on a pedestal. And I'm not saying everyone does this, but I in particular am having some challenges, and I joined a support circle for daughterhood.org, which is a fantastic
I know
site.
Daughterhood.
Love daughterhood. I love it. And the drop-ins are fantastic because you just end up in a group. And anyway, it was a group that we ended up on the conversation of narcissistic moms and substance use disorder dads. And I was in a club. Okay.
Yep.
Whoa, what do you mean,
Yeah.
Gen X daughter with mama's narcissistic and a father who was a heavy drinker? And so I'm not trying to make people out to be bad people,
Yeah.
but it's complicated, and it is also a little dismissing of your lived experience. And when all of a sudden you find yourself in a place of having to provide care to this person and make sure that they're well, when you may not have grown up with the best of experiences yourself, just saying, I'm not trying to make this into Melissa's therapy session, but I think it's worthy of addressing, because sometimes I feel like I can't be completely honest or straightforward. And I'm sorry, I have to go answer the door for a plumber, and I'm just going to leave this here, but I'll be back. Sorry. And yes, thank you for
So real.
Wow. What a great point. And she really does make an excellent point. I know that I sometimes I feel like I just get way too Pollyanna about stuff like, oh, they're just, they're so they're so sweet and kind of, but the reality is that a lot of people bring a lot of stuff, and the relationship that existed before dementia colors how we're going to be able to care for them. I know one of my friends in my support group, her husband was a scoundrel and a cheater. He was kind of a horrible guy, and then he got dementia. Or as she's talking about mothers who, there was a woman, we're talking about your topic there, Melissa. I was talking about a friend of mine whose husband had been just like a total bad guy, cheater, adulterer, and then and she was like debating if, and now I get also there are some dementias that might cause somebody to behave that way. I don't think this was the case. Like it had been a lifelong thing, but also with parents who were hard people to be with and had all kinds of reasons why they were maybe not really fit, maybe they shouldn't have been a parent, but there they were, and now you're taking care of them. And it's hard to justify sometimes. Why am I, or like there's a lady who I'm really good friends with who's taking care of her brother who beat her up when she was a kid. He was
Yeah.
cruel to her entire life. And now she's the only family member. So she
Yep.
feels like it's on her. She has given up her life to be his caregiver because she feels like that's what families do.
Mm,
And
that is,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I have a very similar, I had a similar situation, except my mom, we didn't have a bad relationship. But what you said, Melissa, about when you first started, about somehow because they have dementia, they're so precious now. And I think I really fell into that. And it wasn't until I was finally able to let go and say, you know what? If mom didn't have dementia today, we would still be mad at each other. So cut yourself some slack that you're still mad at each other right now when she does have dementia.
mm,
You know, she's still a person and she still has her likes and her dislikes, even if they're wildly different than what they were 2 years ago. And what I'm doing right now is pissing her off. And what she's doing right now is pissing me off. And once I could kind of say, you know what, that's just life. This is the end of life journey. Focus on life. It's still going to be crappy at points. But because it's the end of life, it's going to be a lot of crappy at points. So that's a different situation. But I just, when you first said that, I thought that was something that once I let go of that, mom's dying, and now we all have to treat her as like this, this little doll. Um, I was a better caregiver after that.
That's really interesting.
yeah. Well, and Melissa, I mean, that really resonates with me more about my complex relationship with my dad, right? Like it was honestly pretty easy to care for my mom because we had such a beautiful relationship. So I could find that connection really easy and I could lean on things that I loved about her as a daughter. But for my dad, we made different decisions about the care that my dad needed because of the complex relationship I had with him. That guy did not move in with my husband and I, right? We made other decisions because I was like, that our relationship is too complex as humans for me. Yes, I am still going to make sure he has access to resources because that's what he did. But I think it's really, really, really important to name. And in fact, I was on a call last week with a young adult daughter and she was naming, what's been really hard is that her mom and her had a complicated relationship, but that the younger onset Alzheimer's is causing the things that made their relationship complicated to even be at the forefront all the time. So she's like, we don't have those moments of connection. We just have the hard moments. And all I am is I'm triggered back to this high school relationship that I had with my mom and how hard and heavy that was. And so similarly, she's like, I'm making decisions about, okay, we're going to have to figure out how we can financially hire some care because it can't be me because it is unhealthy for me. And I think similarly, we so often are like, oh, well, you love that person because they're your mom, or you love that person because they're your
Right.
dad or your spouse or your brother or your sister. But that doesn't always isn't always the case. And so how can we make sure that you have some boundaries in place for yourself if you do have that more complex, and just name it. We had to shift even our like community agreements of our young adult support group because we're like, not everybody loves their person. So it's like your person could be the early stages, they could be in later stages, they could have passed, or you could have a complicated relationship with that person. And really, even for us, it was like taking out the word loved one and using the word person because relationships are complicated. And therapy, right? Therapy is also huge.
Yeah.
My therapist has actually told me not to quit him. He says I'm in for the whole conversation. He goes, I feel like I'm watching a series because he's been my therapist since my dad. And then I broke for a bit because I was so busy. And he's like, that was awful. It's like getting to the end of a season. And then I don't know when the next season's coming. And I'm like, really? Yeah, I'm not retiring until I have 2 more years till retirement. So I just want you to know you need to keep coming to Friday mornings. So anyway,
That's amazing.
amazing.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for bringing that up, Melissa. I think that's an important aspect of the caregiving relationship that we all too often just sort of try not to look at, but it's so real. Yeah. Anything else that anybody would like to raise? I'm always happy to give the gift of time as well, but I'm in if there's anything anybody wants to talk about. All righty. I think we'll close a little early then. Thank you again to everybody who was able to join us today, and especially thanks to Patti LaFleur for being here and sharing your wisdom and your experience. You, with the work that you do at Lorenzo's house on a daily basis, you are filling your coffers with anecdotes and stories and education. And we're just so lucky to have you bring your lived experience and your work experience into this room and allow us to sit at your feet. So thank you, Patti.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It was such a gift to be together.
Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Take good care. Bye.